Relationships. What is one of the most important relationships in your life? Oftentimes, it's our mothers. My mother and I have a dear relationship. I love her dearly. And one of the things that happened a lot growing up was she would always go to my sporting events, and I played a lot of physical sports, football, wrestling, and she would just be an emotional mess. When she was in the audience, kind of watching what was going on, she would say, "Don't hurt my baby," and she would just, sometimes she couldn't even look. The idea of her son being hurt, she just couldn't bear it. And so what we're doing today is we're looking at the life of Jesus, but we're specifically highlighting his crucifixion. And I have the privilege to talk about the humanity of Christ. You see, Christ had relationships, just like you and I have relationships. And one of the biggest things we see on the cross is this relationship between Christ and his mother Mary. And so in the scriptures, in John chapter 19, verse 26, it says this, that when Jesus saw his mother and the disciples whom he loved standing nearby, he said to them, "Woman, behold your son." And then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciples took Mary and took him to their home. And so what we see in scripture is Jesus on the cross. He is in great pain, great suffering, and he sees his mother. And in that moment he sees his mother, he recognizes that relationship between his mother and himself. He recognizes his humanity. You see, what we forget is on the cross, when Mary sees Jesus, when she looks upon Jesus, she doesn't just see the Messiah, she sees her child. The very child that she bore, the very child that she taught to walk and taught to eat and drink, and all of these amazing journeys that a mother and a child can experience. Mary saw the humanity in Jesus, and Jesus saw the humanity in that relationship. And so why do we talk about this on Good Friday? It's because it's important to understand that in the midst of Jesus' crucifixion, that Jesus understood the pain that we go through. That he can identify not only intimately the pain and suffering that sometimes occurs in our lives, but he also understands the relational dynamic in our lives. He understands the dynamic between a father and a son, a mother and a son and his siblings. Jesus had intimate relationships in this world, which makes the sacrifice of Jesus all the more powerful to think about and to dwell, that Jesus was in fact fully God and yet fully man. And so here's my question to you. Have you ever considered Mary's experience as she gazes upon the cross of Christ? Have you ever experienced or considered the humanity of Jesus? You see, as we reflect on this crucifixion, we must remember that it is an intimate sacrifice, not a distant sacrifice, because God not only loves us, but he knows us, and he embraces both the relationships in our lives and the understanding of what those relationships do as we navigate the journey, hopefully towards Christ. And so, thank you for your time. Blessings.